So in the last session, we have discussed about what exactly the Apex programming language and what is the use of Apex programming language and what are the various fundamental rules and the guidelines and the standards given by the Apex programming language. When the user written some code by using Apex programming language, then how this Apex programming code will be executing inside the first.com platform, the execution architecture of the Apex programming language we have discussed. Now, when coming to the Apex programming language, we will be discussing few more features. Upon writing the code, some programming languages will be the case sensitive. Like for example, when you go to some Java programming, while writing some classes, while writing some methods, we have to take care of the case sensitivity. Like some characters
Okay.
will be uppercase letters, some characters will be the lowercase letters. But when coming to the Apex programming, is it a case sensitive or it's not a case sensitive? When coming to the Apex programming language, Apex is not a case sensitive programming. Apex is not a case sensitive programming, so that whatever the case that you want, you can use the combination of uppercase letters, lowercase letters, or only the uppercase letters, or only lowercase letters, whatever you want, we can able to use while writing that code. But some programming languages will be specifically strictly to that case sensitivity, so that you have to take care of that, which character is the uppercase, which character is the lowercase. No, but in the Apex programming language, no need to take care of this case sensitivity because it is not a case sensitive programming language. So now, whenever you are going to be writing that code, Apex programming is providing some fundamental building blocks to you. The various programming elements given by the Apex programming language to you, by which we can able to develop our applications. Initially, whenever you are developing some applications or the small programs, at that time, we are going to be using the ready-made functionalities given by that programming language, and we can develop some small programs. And when moving forward, when you feel comfortable with that programming, at that time we are going to building our own functionalities. We are building our own methods. We are building our own APIs. So now when moving forward, we can build our own. Like the same way here also, when coming to the Apex programming language, Apex provides the various fundamental building blocks. Various fundamental building blocks to develop the applications or business logic. It is providing the various of fundamental building blocks here. So now from those fundamental building blocks, the first part is data types. So what exactly the data type? What is the use of data type here? So I think most of the people are aware of these data types. Now that already we have discussed that Apex programming is purely a tightly coupled programming language where before using the variable, first of all, the variable has to be get defined. We have to define the variable first before its usage. Why? Because is if you did not define that variable, if you did not specify the data type, then how much memory do we need to allocate for that? It will be in ambiguity for us. Suppose if I'm allocating some less amount of memory, then if you are storing some huge data, then the data cannot be fitting into that memory location. Suppose if I'm allocating some more memory as a programming language, then if you're storing very less amount of data, then at that time the memory wastage will be getting happen. So for that here, to avoid this kind of circumstances inside that application, in order to utilize the memory very efficiently, in order to utilize the Salesforce resources very efficiently, because Salesforce is not providing a dedicated server to us, Salesforce is providing a common infrastructure with the help of the multi-tenant architecture. Because of that multi-tenancy, Salesforce is going to be sharing a single server to the multiple users, multiple customers. So for that, we have to make utilize that Salesforce resources very, very efficiently. So now, for that, while writing that code, you have to define the variable first. Based on the data type which we have specified, we are going to be allocating the required amount of memory for that variable. So now when coming to the data type, what it describes basically, data type basically describes two things. Okay, database basically describes two things. First one is what type of data that you are storing inside the variable. Okay, what type of data that you are storing inside the variable, and in order to store the value inside that variable, how much memory needs to be get required. These are the two things will be described by the data type. The data type describes two things. First one is whenever you are defining the variable. For example, I'm defining a variable called as some customer ID. Customer ID is a variable I'm going to defining right now here. Now customer name, I would like to store some customer name. For that, I'm defining one more variable. So at that time, whenever you are trying to be allocating some customer ID, then what type of value it is, whether it is a string type of value or a numerical type of value or what. So for that here, upon defining the variable, first of all, we have to define that data type. So now when coming to the data type describes two things as below. The first one is it describes what type of data value can the variable can hold, what type of data the variable can hold, and the second one, to store the data in the variable, how much memory needs to be required. So now these two things will be getting defined by the data type. Data type describes what type of value the variable can hold, and at that time, to store that value inside that variable, then how much memory needs to be get required. Do we need 2 bytes of memory, 4 bytes of memory, 6 bytes of memory, or what? Depends upon your need. We can able to specify the data types. Now, so now when coming to the Apex programming, every variable has to be get defined first, then only we can able to make use of those variables in order to store some data temporarily. So now for that, upon defining the data types in our Salesforce, in Apex programming especially, whatever the data types are available, these data types has been divided into two categories. We have two categories of data types are available here. Apex provides two types of data types. First one is primitive types. Second one is subject types. So these are the two types are available here, primitive types and the subject types. So what do you mean by primitive types here? Primitive types means the basic fundamental data types which are available in each and every programming language. In every programming language, we are having some common data types are available. Like we are having integer, we are having that long, we are having the decimal, we are having that double, we are having boolean, string, date, date time. These are nothing but some basic elements here. These are nothing but the basic data types. So now these basic data types are called as primitive data types. Primitive means the basic fundamental. Okay, the basic fundamental data types will becomes under primitive data types. Now, so now when coming to the Apex programming language, as part of primitive data types, you will be having integer, you will be having long, you will be having decimal, you will be having double, you will be having string, you will be having ID, you will be having boolean, you will be having date, you will be having date time, you will be having blob. So now these are the various data types available as part of primitive data types. So now as part of primitive data types, we are having integer, long, decimal, double, string, ID, boolean, date, date time, and the blob. So these are the various data types available as part of primitive types. So now when coming to the primitive types here, integer data type. So what exactly the integer data type? Integer data type can able to hold only that numerical values. So it will be holding only that numerical values, that to only that integer part. We cannot store any decimal point values inside that integer data type. For example, if you're having some value 100.50, this kind of values we cannot able to store inside that integer. Integer variable data type can able to hold only that numerical value, that to only that integer part. The decimal point values we cannot able to store inside that integer data type. And when coming to the integer data type, in order to store the value inside that integer variable, we need 4 bytes of memory. Nothing but what happened when coming to the primitive data types, whenever you are defining a variable, okay, whenever you are defining a variable, for example, if you are defining a variable integer some customer ID, then automatically Apex programming is going to be reserving 4 bytes of memory here. Okay, Apex programming is reserving 4 bytes of memory. Why? Because is these integer data type, these primitive data types are having some fixed size of memories there. For every data type, we are having some fixed size of memories available. So at that time, it will be allocating the memory by default at the time of defining the variable itself. So now when coming to this statement is going to be indicating that the user has defined the variable with the name customer ID, which is of type integer. So to store the value inside this variable, it requires 4 bytes of memory. So please reserve 4 bytes of memory for this variable. This is the meaning of this statement. So now it is going to be instructing to that compiler to assign the required amount of memory for this variable. Now the compiler will assign the memory for this variable by default. Now, when coming to the integer data type is going to be accepting only that numerical value, that to the integer part. We cannot store any decimal type of values inside this integer data type. Next, the long. So now when coming to the integer data type, there is some limitations are available. For example, when you go to that C programming language, for that integer data type, you will be having some limitation, like as minus 32,768 to plus 32,767. So this is the limitation is available when coming to the C programming language. But now when coming to the Apex programming language, we can able to store minus 2 to the power of 32 to plus 2 to the power of 32. So this is the limitation given by the Salesforce. So now each and every integer variable can able to hold the value between the range minus 2 to the power of 32 to plus 2 to the power of 32. This is the limitation. Now, the long data type. When coming to the long data type, if you want to store some bigger values, because integer data type will be having some limitations, that is minus 32 to minus 2 to the power of 32 to plus 2 to the power of 32. So this is the limitation that we have. Suppose if you want to store a bigger value than this integer limit, so at that time we can go with that long data type. So now when coming to the long data type, it is going to be occupying 8 bytes of memory. The long data type requires 8 bytes of memory inside that memory location here. So now by using this long data type, we can able to store some bigger values inside that. We can able to store very larger values inside that variable. So now when coming to the long data type, Lang data type will be holding the values between the range minus 2 to the power of 64 to plus 2 to the power of 64. So now this is the range of this Lang data type. And the next one, decimal. So now this integer data type and the Lang data type, these will be accepting the numerical values that to the integer part. Decimal point values cannot be acceptable inside the integer as well as long. In order to store the decimal point values, we are using that decimal data type. So now when coming to the decimal data type, it will be holding that numerical values along with the decimal points also. It will accept the numerical values along with the decimal points. So now when coming to the decimal, each and every decimal data type or the variable will be occupying 8 bytes of memory. Every decimal data type will be occupying 8 bytes of memory. Now, it requires 8 bytes of memory to hold that value. So now, when coming to the decimal data types, for example, we are having some fields are there inside my object. Like we are having some text type of field, currency type of fields, pick list type of fields, text area type of fields. We are having email type of fields, number type of fields. We are having person type of fields. What type of fields are referencing this particular decimal data type? Inside your object, whenever you are creating the field inside that object, each and every field is going to be representing like as a variable inside that class. Every field will be representing like as a variable. Why? Because is inside that field what we are doing, we are storing some value. It may be string type of value, it may be date time value, it may be date value, it may be numerical value, it may be decimal value, whatever. So now each and every field internally representing like as a variable. If the variable is getting defined, then there should be some data type, right? So for that, what will be the data type for those variables here? Now each and every currency field, each and every currency field will reference the decimal data type by default. Because when coming to the decimal data type, the default number of digits after the decimal point is 2. Inside the decimal data type, we can able to specify the default number of digits after the decimal point is 2. But when coming to that currency, the currency will be having only 2 digits after the decimal point. Whenever you are storing some currency values, like some rupee values or whatever, after the decimal point, we need only the 2 digits here. We cannot have 3 digits. So now in this kind of scenario, when coming to the currency field, every currency field is going to be representing like as a decimal data type internally in the backend. So now for that here, when coming to the every currency field will be referencing that decimal data type. And along with that, what are the other data types are going to be referencing this particular decimal data type here. Along with that currency, you will be having the data types, so fields like the number field, currency field, and percent field will reference the decimal data type by default. Decimal data type. Now, when coming to the decimal data type, it requires that 8 bytes of memory to you. The next one, the double. If you want to hold a bigger values, then we can go with that double data type. For example, here, assume that I'm performing some 10 by 3. So now, generally we are using that some 3.1, 3.2 or whatever. Sometimes we are rounding up to 3 itself. But sometimes I need the exact value. When you go to some statistical analysis, or when you go to some medical or the healthcare applications, when coming to some scientific calculations, we need that exact value. Nothing but some 3.333333 something here. We need an exact value over there. So now in this kind of scenario here, if you want to store some bigger values and along with some more number of digits after the decimal point, we can able to go with that double data type. So by using this double data type, we can able to store the bigger values, and then along with that, we can store more number of digits after the decimal point also. So for that, we are using double data type. Now we can store the larger values and along with more number of digits after the decimal point. Now the next data type. The next data type is string. So what exactly the string? I think everybody is aware of that. String is nothing but a collection of characters. Okay, string is nothing but a collection of characters where we can able to store one or more number of characters inside this string data type. Whatever the variable that we have defined with the data type string, in that string with data type, we can able to store some collection of characters. Now, it allows us to store a collection of characters. Now, each character occupies 2 bytes of memory. Whenever you are storing some value, like as for example, I'm defining a variable string, the customer name. I'm storing some value over here. Every string value has to be get enclosed in the single quote. Each string value should be enclosed in single quote. Every string value has to be enclosed in a single quote. It may be a single character, it may be 2 characters or whatever. It may be empty also. Everything we have to enclose in the single characters, single quote. Suppose I'm storing some customer name as some Ramesh Kumar. So at that time inside that Ramesh Kumar, it will be counting how many number of characters are available. So now, even though if it is a space, space is also counting as a character. It will be counting how many number of characters are available. So now depends upon those number of characters, it is going to be allocating the memory where for each and every characters, it need the 2 bytes of memory here. So now what fields are going to be referencing the string data type? Now each text field inside your object, text area field, text area long, and the email field, phone field, website, nothing but URL field, text encrypted field, pick list field, pick list multi-select field. So these are all are referencing string data type by default. So each text field and the text area field and the text area long, email field, phone field, URL, text type, so nothing but text encrypted, pick list field, pick list multi-select field. These are all fields are referencing the string data type internally by default. Whenever you are creating a field, like as some customer name have created a field. Customer name will be like as a string field. Nothing but the text field I have created. Now internally what it will do is Salesforce is going to be defining a variable with that name which is of that string data type to you by default. So now when moving forward we will see During that Apex programming, during that object-oriented programming, we'll see what exactly the architecture of a class. How Salesforce is maintaining the classes internally by default. So what is the internal architecture is following by the Salesforce. You'll see practically over there. The next one. The next data type is ID. So now whenever you are creating some records inside that Salesforce object, each and every record can be identified by using one unique identification number, which will be having that 18 characters, which is an alphanumerical value generated by the Salesforce. That everybody will be aware of that. So now for each and every record, Salesforce is going to be allocating one unique identification number that is called as ID. Now that ID will be having that 18 characters ID. Now that will be the fixed size. That will be the fixed size. The ID cannot be the 5 digits. ID cannot be 10 characters. ID cannot be 12 characters. ID will be exactly 18 characters. So now in order to store those record IDs, it will be using that ID data type. Each record or each object's ID field will reference the ID data type. So now what are the values that we have inside this ID data type? This should be the case sensitive. ID is a case sensitive data type. ID is a case sensitive data type. So that whatever the ID that we have inside that record, which is an 18 characters ID, that ID should be the case sensitive. The next one, the Boolean data type. So Boolean means what? This data type will be referencing to hold the values of type either true or false. So now in order to store some true or false values, we are going to be using that Boolean data type. This data type will hold true or false values. So now here in order to hold this true or false value, it will be occupying 1 byte of memory. This data type occupies 1 byte of memory. Why? Because it is going to be storing only that single value, nothing but a bit value it will be holding inside that. Nothing but true means what? 1. False means 0. Nothing but zeros or ones. Nothing but in order to hold the bit value, we need 1 byte of memory over here. So now you will be having that byte data types will be there generally in our other programming languages. The byte data types are going to be holding that only the bit values, either zeros or ones we can able to store inside that. Now in order to store this 0 or 1, nothing but 0 means false, true means 1. In order to hold this true or false values, we are using that Boolean data type. So now what type of fields are referencing this Boolean data type? Where we are storing true or false values? In the checkbox field. Now inside that fields, we are having a field type called as checkbox. Now checkbox may be selected, checkbox may not be selected. If the checkbox is selected, means it is returning true. If the checkbox is not selected, it is returning the value as false. Nothing but checkbox is going to be returning either true or false value, so that each and every checkbox field will be referencing that Boolean data type internally by default. Now, each checkbox field will reference the Boolean data type. By default. And the next one. The next data type is date data type. So now in order to store the date values, we are going to be using that data type. Now this data type can able to hold only the date values to you. Now in order to store that date value, it will be requires 8 bytes of memory here. This data type requires 8 bytes of memory. It requires the 8 bytes of memory. So now whenever you are going to be storing that data type, what type of fields that we are using? Date fields are available. Okay, we are having the date fields are available. inside your Salesforce instance. Upon creating your object, upon creating the fields inside that object, we are selecting that data type. For example, here, so now we are creating few fields by selecting the data type. Like previously, we have defined some objects. We have created some objects like as position object. In that position object, for each and every position record, we are having the milestones. Nothing but this is the open date, this is the close date. Nothing but in order to hold that the open data of the position record, in order to hold that close data of the position record, we are creating few fields which will be holding only the date values here, where we can able to select the date value by using that pop-up calendar. So now to define this field, whenever you are defining this open date and the close date field, by default, these are going to be creating two variables with the type of date data type. So now for that, when coming to the date data type, each date field inside that object will be referencing that date data type. Each date field inside the object will reference the date data type by default. By default, these are referencing that data data type here. So now, for example, when coming to the field types, each and every ID field will be referencing that ID data type. Any other fields are referencing that for ID? Any other field types? Anybody? For example, let me show you that practically. For example, I'm having the two objects are there, hiring manager and the position. Okay, I'm having the two objects are there, which is hiring manager and the position. So now let's see that structure of these objects. Now I'm having that hiring manager and the position is available. Now hiring manager is the parent object for us and the position is our child. Hiring manager means what? The recruiter. One recruiter can able to recruit the candidates for the multiple positions. So that here we have mapped that one-to-many association between these two with the help of the association. Now what is this association type over here? The blue color is indicating what? What type of association it is? Nobody is responding.
Parent child.
Okay, one-to-many, okay. Then what kind of association it is?
It's a parent-child association.
Okay, parent-child means
Lookup
what?
relation.
Lookup association.
Yeah, sorry.
It is a lookup association. Nothing but the blue color is going to be indicating this is a lookup association. And along with that, we are having some associations are there. Like we are having some object like some candidate object also we can define. That candidate object will be having the association called as a master detail also, whatever. So now between these two objects, we are having that lookup association. So now how can we map the association basically? What is the need? How can we map the association?
By using lookup field.
Okay. By using lookup field, we can map that association. Then what it will do basically? What the lookup field will do? What
Create it will create a list, right?
So that
whatever record you are putting inside child, you can see in the related list of parent.
Okay. Then upon creating a child record, we are going to be selecting the parent, right? By using that lookup field,
Yes.
we can able to select that parent record. Upon selecting that parent, what kind of value it will store inside that field? Lookup is also a field, right? Inside
It's a
that
field,
field,
right?
Parent record
of
ID.
the
parent record. Parent record
Yes.
what? Name or ID?
ID.
Parent record ID.
ID will be storing inside that lookup field. Nothing but what happened, this is also holding what? The ID of the record. Nothing but this is a lookup association. Nothing but lookup relationship field is also holding what? The ID of the parent record which we have selected. So now for that, when coming to the object, each and every object's ID field as well as the lookup relationship field. Lookup relationship field and then the master detail relationship field. Master detail relationship field and the hierarchical relationship. Hierarchical relationship field will reference the ID data type. So these points are very, very important here. When coming to the certification and when coming to the entry point of view, these points are very, very important. Why? Because why I'm giving this information is generally this is not required. Why I'm giving this information is when moving forward, we are going to be discussing whatever the objects that we have inside your Salesforce. It may be standard or it may be custom. Every object will be represented like as a class. Every object will be represented like as a class. Now, whatever the object name that you have given like as position underscore underscore C, with the position underscore underscore C, Salesforce will be creating a class to you by default. Upon creating that object, automatically Salesforce is creating a class. If the class is there, then what will be the members of inside that class here? Every class will be having some variables. Every class will be having some functions, some properties, and some methods, some constructors. Everything will be getting available inside that. Then at that time, what will be those members here? Now Salesforce is providing each and every field which we have, like as can delete is a field, closed it is a field, created by is a field, the days remains to close, hiring manager ID, last modified date, location value, minimum budget, maximum budget, everything. Each and every field will be representing like as a variable inside that. Now, whatever the table structure that we have defined, whatever the table structure that we have defined by creating that object, with that exact structure, it will be creating a class to you. The whole structure will be representing like as a class to you. Because of that here, that class variable and this particular object field will be getting mapped automatically with the help of ORM technology. Already we have discussed that Salesforce is purely supporting ORM technology to you. Object relationship and the mapping. Each and every object will be representing like as a class, the class variable and this object field, nothing but the column both will be getting mapped internally by default. That will be taken care by the Salesforce itself. So that whenever you are assigning some value for that field, automatically that value will be fitting into that column automatically by default. So for that here, every field will be representing like as a data of every field will be representing like as a variable inside that associated class. When moving forward, we are going to be discussing over there now. So at that time, you can able to understand each and every functionality. Next, the date time. Sometimes we are storing the date and time values here. Like as we are storing that values like the task object or the event object. During the task and the events, we are going to be specifying that the date and time exactly. Suppose I'm having a meeting. It may be a client call. It may be a general meeting, whatever. So at that time, we are going to specifying the date as well as time also. Nothing but at what time you are having the meeting. Now, what will be the starting time of the meeting? What will be the ending time of that meeting here? So that we need to specify not only the date, we need to specify the date along with the time also. Exactly the start time and exactly the end time. So now in this kind of scenarios, we have to use this date time. When coming to the every object, you will be having two fields are commonly available by the Salesforce. Whenever you are creating an object, Salesforce is providing 5 fields to you by default. That already we have discussed that. ID is a common field. Name is a common field will be given by the Salesforce to you by default. Owner field, created by, last modified by. Created by, last modified by will be holding what? It will be holding the name of the person, nothing but the name of the user who has created that. And along with that, at what date he has created the record, at what time he has created the record. At the time of modification also, nothing but last modified by field. That last modified by field will be holding the last modified date as well as the time also, at what time he has modified the record. So now at that time, we have to store the date value along with the time. So for that, we are using date time field values. These are used to store date time stamps. So now where we are using the date time stamps again? Any other places have we used the date time stamps? Previously, we have discussed about a concept called as data loader. Whenever you are using the data loader to perform some import and export operations, at that time, data loader is going to be generating that output files to you. Nothing but it is generating the success file. It is generating that error file. So now each and every success file and the error file names will be getting stored with that along with the date time stamp value as well. Like as it is giving the file name like some success, and after that it will be having some value inside that. That value is nothing but what? That will be holding that the month value and the date and the year and the hours and the minutes, seconds and the milliseconds. So now this is a file name it will be using internally by default here. So now by default, data loader is going to be generating the two files for every operation. One is the success file, second one is the error file. Why? Because is data loader is purely supporting the partial processing. Nothing but whenever you are trying to be inserting the records by using data loader, if any of the record has been failure, then it won't cancel that whole transaction. It will be continuing with the rest of the records as well. So why? Because is if it is canceling the whole transaction, then we have to reinsert the records again and again and again. So in the second time also, there is no guarantee that any of the record may get failed. So for that here, if you are reprocessing the same records again and again and again, then we are going to be misutilizing that Salesforce resources. Because Salesforce is providing the shared resources to us so that we have to utilize those resources very, very efficiently. So for that, it is going to be allowing that partial processings to you. Now, whenever you are going to be having this kind of fields, like as the creating that file names, nothing but the log files, and then whenever you are going to be having some audit tracking fields like as the created by and the last modified by, at that time we have to use the date time stamp. And the next one. So after that, we are having one more data type that is called as blob. The blob data type. So now blob means what? Binary large objects. Binary large objects. So now here where we are using this binary large objects here. Sometimes in the previous sessions also, we have discussed about that. We are using one object called as a document object. So what we are storing inside the document object, in that document object, we can able to store few images, we can store some pictures, we can store some documents, etc. And along with that, you will be having some notes and attachments also. Nothing but attachment is also what? A file. That file may be a text file, that file may be a Word document, that file may be an audio file, that file may be a video file, that file may be any type of thing. So at that time, how these files will be getting stored? The files cannot be stored.
Even rich text also same thing, right?
That's what here.
Because the rich text also
Yes,
in
correct.
the blob, right?
That's what here we haven't specified the rich text area inside that string data type. Okay, that will be comes under here, the blob data type. Now, so now when coming to that images and the pictures, documents, and the various of files we are going to be adding like as attachment. Now at that time, these files we cannot be storing into the database exactly in the same format. These files will be converting into the binary format. That binary format of data will be storing inside the database column. So now for that here, if I'm storing this exact file, it will be occupying more memory. Inside a column, we cannot able to hold that much of memory over there. So for that here, it is going to be converting that whole file content into the binary format, and that binary format of content will be storing inside that column of the table. So for that, we are using the blob data type. So now the blob data type will be used to store images, pictures, files, the libraries, etc. These are the various types of content we can able to store. Then how much content we can store here? There is a limitation is available. Now blob data type can able to hold maximum of 2 GB of content. The blob data type can able to hold maximum of 2 GB of content. So now this is various data types offered by the Apex programming to you, which are part of the primitive data types. So now when coming to the primitive data types are nothing but the fundamental data types or the basic data types are offered by each and every programming language. Like as the integer, long, decimal, double, string, ID, boolean, date, time, blob. These are the various primitive data types available inside your Apex programming language. Now, the next one is subject data types. The second category of data type is a subject. A subject means what? Salesforce objects. You are aware of the Salesforce objects. Salesforce is providing two types of objects to you. One is the standard objects, second one is the custom objects. Now both standard objects and custom objects combinedly called as S objects simply. Okay. Simply S objects means Salesforce objects. It may be standard, it may be custom, it may be combination of both also. So for that each and every Salesforce object will be referred as S object. So now, as of now, we have stored that value. For example, I'm storing some integer value here, like some customer ID. Now, for that, I have defined a variable by using that integer data type. Integer, some customer ID here. I can able to store only that value. But for sometimes, I would like to store an account record. Sometimes I want to store an account record here. In that account record, what it contains, it will be holding so many values to you here. It will be holding the ID of the account, name of the account, rating value, industry value, type value, annual revenue value, phone value, fax value, home phone, and the address information. And then it will be holding the active status. Everything is available here. Nothing but what happened, we need to store some collection of values inside that. So now at that time, if you want to store some records inside your variables, then we have to define with the help of S subject data types. Each and every object available in Salesforce, for every object Salesforce is creating a class. For every object Salesforce is creating a class to you. Now, so now as of now, we have discussed about few data types over here. Whatever the data types that we have, these are not the tokens. These are not the reserved words. These are not the system defined word. Each and every data type is nothing but a class. For example here, assume that when you go to that C programming language, you will be having the data types are available. Integer, char, string, like that we are having some data types are available. Float, double, like that you are having some data types are there. Each and every data type is going to be representing what? This is nothing but a token. Nothing but the system defined word or the user defined word. So now when you come to that Java programming, the same data type is referencing like as a class. Integer is a class and the string is a class. And you will be having Boolean is a class. That's what here you will be having some methods inside that class. Whenever you are going to be retrieving some data from the command prompt by using Java programming language, the people are using that statement called as system.readline. So now this readline method is going to be reading the data from the command line. So now even though if you are entering the 100 value, then this will be treating like as a string by default. Each and every value which has been read from the command prompt by using the readline method, it is going to be treating that value like as a string. But I want to store this value into the integer variable. Like as this is a variable that I have defined, customer ID. Now, in order to assign that value into this particular numerical variable, it won't accept directly. So for that, what needs to be done? We have to use integer dot or int dot parseInt, or you may use int dot try parse. We are using some functions over here, nothing but where we are defining these functions inside the class. Nothing but each and every data type is going to be describing like as a class. These are not the words, these are not the system defined words, these are not the tokens like a C programming language. In Apex programming language also, each and every data type is nothing but a class, because these are purely the object-oriented programming languages. Everything will be available in terms of the classes and the objects only. So what exactly the class, what exactly the object will be discussing during that, the object-oriented programming principles. Now, so now when coming to the C programming language, everything will be treating like as the token or the system defined word, but in the other programming languages, these are called as the classes. Now, like the same way, when coming to the Salesforce, we are having so many objects are available. It may be standard object, it may be custom object also. Each and every object will be referencing like as a class eternally by default. Okay, every object will be referencing like as a class. Now, so now what will be the names of those class over here? Now let's see. For example, now let's see here. We are having so many objects are available. Initially in our during our initial classes, we have discussed about that. Standard objects as well as custom objects here. So now we will be having that object name like as account, contact, opportunity, case, solution, lead, campaign, order, customer underscore underscore C, position underscore underscore C, like that. So many objects we have created inside our object, inside our Salesforce instance. Now these objects may be either standard objects, these objects may be either custom objects also, whatever. So now each and every object will be having an associated tab. The tab name is a plural name that already we have discussed in our initial classes. Every object will be creating a table internally in the backend where the object name and the table name will be exactly same. Now here you will be having the table like as account, contact, opportunity, case, solution, like that. You will be having that classes or tables are available. And each and every custom object will be having that table called as customer underscore underscore C, position underscore underscore C. Nothing but every object name will be getting post fixed with underscore underscore C to indicate this is a custom. This is a user defined. It's not the standard. Now, so now during that time we have discussed about what are the various differences between the standard objects and the custom objects also we have discussed over there. So now upon you will be having that object, or whenever you are creating an object in Salesforce, for each and every object, Salesforce is providing two classes to you. Salesforce is providing two classes to you over here. So now what are those two classes given by the Salesforce for each and every object? Now let's see practically here. So now for each and every object, Salesforce is providing two classes to you by default. So now what are those two classes? Now let's see. So now for those objects, Salesforce is providing the two classes to you. Now the first class, it is providing a class to perform the DML operations. Now this class name and the table name will be exactly same. Now the class name is account, class name is contact, class name is opportunity, class name is case, solution class, lead class, campaign class, and the order class. And for your custom object also, it will be creating a class to you that is called as customer underscore underscore C. This is my class name. For the position object, whatever the object API name is available with the same name, it is creating a class for you here. This is a class given by the Salesforce to you by which we can able to perform all the DML manipulations. Nothing but what happened, each and every object will be represented like as a class inside that Apex programming. So this is the ready-made class given by the Salesforce to you. Upon creating an object, by default, Salesforce is generating this class also by default for you. And then along with that, it is providing one more class to you that is called as a share class. So what is the use of this share class? Whenever you are going to be using that security features, during that time, we have discussed about the concept of sharing features. We have discussed about the concept of sharing features. Now let's see here. So now we have discussed about the concept of sharing features. Now during that sharing settings, we have discussed about two types of sharings here. One is the manual sharing, second one is the automated sharing. One is the manual sharing, second one is the automated sharing. Now along with that, we have discussed that during that time, we are having one more option is available to share the record through programmatically. In order to share the records, it may be any object records. If you want to share the records through programmatically, at that time, we have to use a share class. Okay, we have to use a share class. Now that share class will be given by whom? Salesforce itself. When it is giving that share class, when you want to go for the sharing concept, if the object's wordability is private or if it is read only, then only the record will not be visible to everybody here. The people cannot able to modify the records. So at that time, whenever you are going to be having that object's wordability as private or public read only, at that time this sharing class will be getting accessible to you. If the object's wordability is equals to the public read write, then these sharing classes cannot be accessible to you here. Why? Because is the record access will be available to everybody. Everybody will be having the access on the record. Everybody can able to see the record. Everybody can able to modify the record. Then what is the need of sharing? So for that here, share class will not be visible to you. Sharing class will be getting visible to you only at the time of that object's wordability is equals to private or public read only. During these two cases only, it will be making that class will be getting accessible to you. For each and every object, Salesforce is providing a separate share class. So what is this share class? Now let's see. For the account object, we have a class called as account share class. For the contact, we are having that contact share class. For the opportunity, we are having opportunity share class. And for the case, we are having case share class. For the solution, we are having solution share. For the lead, we are having lead share. Campaign, we are having campaign share. For the order, we are having order share class. Like the same way for my custom object also. Whenever you are going to be creating a custom object already, we have discussed clearly during the security. Upon creating an object, by default, Salesforce is assigning that custom object's wordability as public read write. If you are making that object's wordability as either private or public read only, at that time, Salesforce is going to be enabling the access on this share class also here. So what is the share class for my custom object? So now your object name customer underscore underscore share. If your object name is position underscore underscore share. If you're having the object name like some candidate underscore underscore share. These are the share classes for your custom objects also. Nothing but what happens, Salesforce is providing the two classes for each and every object by default. And now the first class is used to perform the DML operations where this class name and your object name and your table name exactly same. And the second class is a share class. By using this share class, we can able to share the records through programmatically also. When moving forward, we will see how can we share the record through programmatically and how it will be maintaining internally the sharing visibility. We'll see practically over there. During the Apex sharing concept, we'll see how can we share the record through programmatically as well. Now,
Firoz, I have a question, but all these are Apex classes, right, Firoz?
Yes, these are all our Apex classes.
But when we go and see in the Apex classes, these won't visible?
Yes, these won't visible to you. These won't visible to you. Whatever the classes given by the Salesforce, this will not be visible to you.
Table also, Apex table.
No. So already you are having the Apex class table. In the Apex class table, it will be making visible only your custom classes which you have created. Standard classes will not be visible to you. Okay, when you query that Apex class table, you will be getting only your classes. That's it. You cannot able to see the existing classes given by the Salesforce. Okay, now. So now this is the internal architecture is going to be using by this Salesforce to you over here. Now, so now for each and every object, Salesforce is creating a class to you. Now that class name and your table name and your object name exactly same. Okay, your class name, the table name, and the object name exactly same. All will be same. So now these are the classes which we are going to be using in order to store the records to perform the DML manipulations. So for that here, this each and every class is representing like as in a subject data type. Yes, subject means Salesforce object data type. Now these are the Salesforce objects that we have. Now, so now this account class is can able to hold one account record, and the contact class can able to hold one contact record. Opportunity class can able to hold one opportunity record. Case class can able to hold one case record. And the customer underscore C can able to hold one customer record. Position underscore C can able to hold one position record here. So for that here, what needs to be done? If you want to store an integer value, then we are going to be creating a variable of type integer here. Integer customer ID. Suppose if you want to store one account record, then we have to create a variable with the data type account sum ACC. Nothing but account is what? A class. So what it represents? The account object. In that account object, whatever the fields are available, for each and every field, we can assign that value, and that whole record we can store inside that ACC variable. Now, this account variable, nothing but the ACC variable can able to hold one account record. If you want to store some multiple record, then we have a different concept, collection classes. During that collection classes, we can able to see that here. So now for that here, each and every Salesforce object will be referenced as a subject. Now for every Salesforce object, Salesforce is providing, Apex Programming is providing one ready-made class to you. That class name and your object name and your table name exactly same. So that here we are having so many yes objects are available, like as account, contact, opportunity, case, solution. Like that you will be having so many objects are available here. And then you will be having your custom objects also, like as customer underscore C, position underscore C, hiring underscore, manager underscore C, and we are having some candidate underscore C. Like that, whatever the custom objects that we have created, those are also holding the classes. So now in order to store that account record, we have to define a variable here, account some ACC, contact some CON, whatever the variable name that you want. Opportunity. Now the customer record here, I'm defining like as some CUST, and then POS, and I'm defining like as some HR, I'm defining like as some CND. Nothing but here I'm defining some variables here. So now we are having that primitive data types, we are having some subject data types. Now then what is the difference between these two? What is the difference between the primitive data types and the subject data types?
In the S-object data type, you will store entire object. In the primitive data type, you can store either string, like based on that one.
Data type, only one value we can able to store, okay? And then?
And here it's a store entire record.
Okay.
And this has some operations to stay saving everything to the database.
Okay. Now.
And this is like ORM tables, like it represents like each table will have its corresponding class.
Okay. Now, come to the memory part. Suppose, for example, if I'm defining integer some customer ID, how much memory?
This will occupy the memory of each individual field in the class or object, right?
Okay. Now, for example, here I'm defining a variable called as some integer customer ID. Each integer variable will be occupying the 4 bytes of memory. So that as soon as whenever you are defining that variable, okay, as soon as whenever you are defining this variable, by default, Apex compiler is going to be reserving the 4 bytes of memory for this variable. You may use that memory, you may not use that memory, it won't bother about that. So now you have defined the variable so that Defining the variables means what? I am giving the instruction to my Apex compiler that I am defining a variable with the name customer ID, which is of type an integer. Nothing but I am trying to be storing some customer ID value inside that variable. So to store that value, we need some memory. So please reserve the amount of memory for that. Now we are instructing to that Apex compiler. Now, as the responsibility of the Apex compiler, it is assigning the 4 bytes of memory to you. Using that memory, or you may not using that memory, it's up to you. Depends upon your requirement. You may store the value, you may not store that value here. It's up to you. So now nothing but what happened. If you are using that variable to store some value, then it will be fine. If you're not storing any value inside that, then that memory will be wastage here. Nothing but what happened. Whenever you are going to be defining the variable with the help of primitive data types, each and every primitive data type is going to be supporting the static memory allocation. The first one is these are supporting the static memory allocation. Static memory allocation means upon defining the variable itself, automatically memory will be getting reserved. Not at the time of runtime. At the time of compilation time itself, the memory will be getting reserved for your variables. You may use that variable, you may not use that memory variable here. So now, in this kind of scenario, what happened here? When coming to the static memory allocation, if you are using that memory allocation to store some value, then fine. If you are not storing that value, then the memory wastage will be getting happen. The main drawback with that, the static memory allocation is the memory wastage will be getting happen. In primitive data types, there is no proper memory management.
Firoz, there is no concept of a garbage collector here?
Yes, yes. We have the garbage collector is also there. So
okay, thank you.
Coming to the Java programming, you will be having some garbage collectors. And then when coming to the Apex programming also, you will be having the garbage collector. Once every transaction or the operation has been done, automatically Apex is going to be invoking the garbage collector to you. No need to invoke this one manually. It will be getting invoked automatically here. Okay. The next one. When coming to the static memory allocation, in each and every primitive data type, there are some memory wastage will be happen here. There is no proper memory management, so that memory wastage may be getting happen here. Whenever you are going to be defining some primitive data type variables, then where the memory will be getting allocated, for all the primitive data types, the memory will be getting allocated inside that stack memory. Now, the primitive data type variables memory will be getting allocated. Memory will be allocated in stack memory. For the primitive data types, for the primitive variables, the memory will be getting allocated inside that stack memory here. So now when coming to the subject types, if it is a integer variable, I'm having some fixed sizes available. Okay, if it is a fixed size. Now for my account record, then how much memory do we need to allocate here? Assume that inside my account record, I'm having some 500 fields are there. In order to create that account record, no need to pass the value for each and every field, because I'm having one field is a mandatory field, that is name field. You may pass the value for the name field and you can create that record as well. Or you may pass the value for some other fields also here. Depends upon your need. So now in this kind of scenario, no need to pass the value for all the fields available inside that object, so that we can pass the value for name field and the rating field and the industry field, and we can create the record. And we can pass the value for all the fields, and we can able to store the value, create the record also here. So now in this kind of scenario, there is no specific requirement that we have to pass the value for each and every field available inside that. So for that here, when coming to the subject data types, nothing but for your account depends upon the values which we are supplying at runtime. It will be calculating how much memory will be required for this class variable. So now when coming to the subject data types, nothing but these variables memory will be not allocating at the time of defining. At the time of runtime, it will be getting allocated the memory here. So why? Because is here, we don't know what kind of values you are supplying. Whether you are passing the value for all the fields inside the account record, or whether you are passing only one field value, or two fields values, or four fields values, we don't know. At runtime, you are supplying that value. During that runtime, depends upon the number of values that we have supplied to create that account record, depends upon the type of the values which we are supplying, it will be allocating the memory at runtime. So for that here, when coming to the subject data types, subjects are purely supporting the dynamic memory allocation. These are purely supporting the dynamic memory allocation. Now when coming to the subject data types, where the memory will be getting allocated over here. If it is a dynamic memory allocation will be happen, then what is the advantage of dynamic memory allocation? Dynamic memory allocation is going to be avoiding the memory wastage. It is avoiding the memory wastage so that we can able to utilize the memory very efficiently. Hence, we can utilize the memory efficiently. We can utilize the memory very efficiently so that there is no concept of memory wastage. And for this subject data types, the memory will be getting reserved inside that heap memory. Heap memory will be having the larger size where it will be allocating the memory for those variables over here. Now, subject variables memory will be get reserved in heap memory. Subject data types memory will be getting reserved in that heap memory. So now these are the two types of data types are available to you over here. One is the primitive data types. Second one is subject data types. Inside the primitive data types, we are having that various data types, fundamental data types we have discussed. And as part of this subject data type, we are having the various data types are available. Nothing but each and every object, it may be standard and custom will be representing like as a data type inside that. Each and every data type which we have in our Apex programming, every data type is nothing but a class. Every data type is nothing but a class. Now, so not between these primitive data types and the subject data types, we have discussed the differentiations as well. Now, by using these data types, how can we define the variable? Now we'll see the variable declaration. How to define the variables here. So what do you mean by variable? Anybody? What do you mean by a variable? Anyone?
Something that doesn't have a constant value and keeps changing.
Okay.
It holds some memories.
Okay. Now, for example, assume that I'm having some space. Assume that this is the memory. So this is the whole memory is available over here. This is the whole memory space. So now inside this memory space, I'm storing some value. Okay, I'm storing some value. Like as I'm storing the value like as some 2000. This is the value that I have stored. So now what will happen here? This is the whole memory space is available. This is the whole memory space is available. Now this is the whole memory space that we have. Inside this memory space, I have stored some value that is 2000 in a specific place. Then how do you know where exactly this particular 2000 value is available? Whenever you are storing some value, okay, whenever you are storing some value, for this value, it is going to be having some starting memory address. Okay, it is having some starting memory address. So now assume that this is the value that we have stored. This is the starting memory address. This is the location where exactly we have stored that value. So now this values memory starting memory address is some 0x. Now 10 ex1 001x. Because here this will be available in terms of some the decimal format or the octal format or hexadecimal. Now each and every memory location can be identified by using that octal or the hexadecimal format. This will be available like as 0x1001, like that will be having that format. So now I have stored that value 2000, and along with that I have stored one more value also, that is nothing but my customer name here. Customer name is some Pawan Kumar. So now this value is also stored inside that heap memory here. Inside that heap memory, this value also has stored. Now assume that this is a location that where the value has been stored. For this memory location, it will be having some starting memory address will be available to you. It is having some starting memory address like as 01 x 100 x10. Assume that this is the starting memory address. Now I want this 2000 value. I want this Pawan Kumar value. Then how can we fetch this value? In order to fetch that particular value, first of all, we have to locate that memory address where exactly the value is available. Then how can we reference that number? That number is a very complex number. Nothing but that particular memory address is a very complex number, like a 0x, 10x, like that will be having some value. So now how can we remember all these things? Sometimes we are unable to remember our bank account number itself from which we are getting the salary since almost 2 years. We are unable to remember the mobile number itself sometimes. We cannot able to remember all these things. Then how can we remember these very complex numbers? So for that here, what happened is, instead of using that memory location addresses directly, I would like to assign a meaningful name which I can able to remember very easily. So for that here, what I want to do is, I don't want to assign this particular, I don't want to refer that value with the help of that memory address. I would like to refer this particular values with the help of a name. So now for that, what I want to do is, for each and every memory location, I want to assign a name, like as some customer ID. I'm assigning a name that is called as customer ID. For this one, I'm giving that name as some customer name. Nothing but what happened, these names I can able to remember very easily. I can able to recollect this information. So for that, what happened, instead of referencing that values available inside that memory location with the help of that starting memory address, which will be very, very complex to remember all those things, for that, we are giving one reference name, nothing but one meaningful name. We are giving one meaningful name. So now by using that meaningful name, we can able to locate that particular memory address over here and we can fetch that value. So now here, this is exactly nothing but a variable. Variable is nothing but what? Variable is nothing but a name which will be giving to the memory location inside that system. So now when coming to the variable, variable is nothing but a name which will be allocating to a memory location. So which is referencing to a value. So now for that here, we are defining that variable. When coming to the variable, variable is nothing but a name. It is nothing but a name to be allocated to the memory location to hold the value inside this, to hold the value inside it. So for that here, in order to store that value, we are using that variables. Then how can we define these variables here? In order to define the variables, we are going to be using a specific syntax. Then what is the need of defining the variables here? The variables we are going to be defining to hold the values temporarily for some time. In order to hold the values temporarily for some time, we are going to be using that variables. Variables are used to hold the values temporarily for some time to perform some operations. To perform some operations, we need to hold the value for some time in a separate location. So for that, we are defining that variables here. So now when coming to the variables, we have to define the variable first. Because when coming to the Apex programming language, this is purely a tightly coupled programming language where we have to define the variable first before its usage. So now in order to define that variable, we have to specify a syntax here. We have to use a syntax. Then how can we define a variable here? For that, we have to use this syntax. specify the access specifier, and then specify the data type, and specify the variable name, and then optionally we can assign some value also. We can assign some value. Each and every statement has to be ends with a semicolon. So now this is the common here. Now this is the syntax that we have to use in order to define a variable. Okay, in order to define a variable. So now here we have to specify the access specifier and a data type and the variable name, and then we can assign some value also for that variable. So now here, when coming to the access specifier, I have placed inside that square braces. Whatever the things that I have placed inside the square braces, these are optional statements. These are optional. You may use, you may not use. You may specify, you may not specify. It won't bother about that. Okay. So now here in this kind of scenario, when coming to the variables, then how can we define? Access specifier is not mandatory right now here, so that when moving forward during the object-oriented programming, we'll see what exactly the access specifier, what are the various access specifiers given by the Apex programming language to you, and how can we define those variables here. Now, so now we have to specify the data type. You are aware of those data types as well here. For example, I'm defining the variable with the name integer customer ID. So now I'm giving that variable name as customer ID. Whenever you are defining the variables, please give a proper meaningful name. Don't define the variables like as integer x comma y comma z abc x y z like that. Don't define the variables with that names. Give a proper meaningful name. Because when you go to the real-time implementations, always we have to follow that coding standards and the naming conventions given by that organization. So for that here, upon defining the variable, when you observe the name of the variable, in that name itself, we should be able to understand what is the functionality of the variable, why you have defined the variable, what type of value you are holding inside the variable. Everything we can able to observe with the help of that name itself. By observing the name itself, we can able to get all the information about that variable. No need to look into that internal code. So now for that, please give a proper meaningful name. Now I don't want to assign the value. For that, I'm defining this variable. Now I'm defining a variable here, string variable, like as customer name. I'm defining the variable like as Boolean active status. I'm defining the variable date, customer birth date. And then we are going to be storing that ID here, customer unique ID. Like that, we can able to store some values inside that. Okay, we can able to assign that values over here. Whenever you are going to be defining the variable, automatically depends upon the data type, the respective amount of memory will be getting reserved for those variables by default. So now this is the syntax that we have to use to define that variables. Okay, now. So in tomorrow's session, we are going to be discussing the various operators and the printing statements available inside your Apex programming. Like as in C programming, we are having the printf. In C++, we are having the cout statement to print the values. In our Java, we are having some system.out.println. If you are having some .NET, you are having the console.writeline. Like the same way in our Apex programming language also, we are having some printing statements are available. Then how can we define the small variables? How can we perform the operations? And how can we execute the code? Where we can execute the code? What are the various ways to write the code? What are the various ways to execute the code? And how to see the result? Where the results will be getting generated? Everything we'll see practically in tomorrow's session. So now tomorrow's session will be very, very important, that we are going to be discussing about how to write the code, how to execute, how to see the results inside that. Okay, don't miss that tomorrow's session.
Firoz,
Yeah.
if everybody agree on it, could you please take class tomorrow morning, because I think everyone has a holiday tomorrow.
Okay.
And if you are agree, I mean, if you are free.
So no, you are tomorrow morning means for me it's